Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Google Maps Developers Live. I'm Paul Saxman, and this week I'm going to talk about mapping with style, or more commonly known as Google Maps styles. I'm going to talk about ways that you can actually take your map, your Google map in your website, style it to make it kind of fit your data or your website's look and feel. I've taken actually a few of the styles that I put together recently for visualizations. You might have seen them in the last couple of weeks for the ship visualizations. I'll kind of show you those and how I put those together. Talk a little bit about why I pick certain styling constraints, and show you this tool that I've been working on for kind of evaluating these styles, and hopefully a tool that we can make publicly available before too long. Before I get into that, however, one quick announcement is that the Google Places API Developer Challenge has 2 weeks remaining for submissions. So if you're working on an application for the challenge, now's your chance to, or now's the time to get it in. There's 2 weeks for submissions. I think it's the last day of November. And yeah, we've seen a lot of great submissions so far, but we're definitely looking forward to seeing any more. So, so please, submit away. And so with that, let me get into the visualizations a little bit. If we can take a look at my screen here. So if you've been tuning into the show, or use Google Maps, this would probably look familiar, at least the map itself. This is an unstyled Google map. So it's basically just the basic interface that you get with, you can embed in a website with a few lines of code. The stuff around the periphery are little controls that I've added, and I'll talk about these and how I added these in a little bit. But one thing that I did here, I got 2 little things in this interface. One is this little styles pull up. These are 5 of kind of my favorite styles. And you can tell that I'm not quite a designer because none of these styles have any real color to them. I'm kind of a monochrome designer. But I've actually played around with a couple of these with different color palettes, and I'll talk about how you can swap out black for other colors. The other thing that I have in this interface here is I put this. This is Ace Editor. So as I switch these styles, we can actually look at the code real time, actually the map style. So I'm just taking whatever map style I'm applying to the map and dropping it into this little code box here. And these little buttons over on the top left, these are for just testing different things in my visualization. So this whole site I put together in probably about a day's time. Oops. And like I said, hopefully we can. If you guys think it looks useful or interesting, we can productize it. But the other thing I did more recently is I put in this little interface here so we can look for different. This uses the Google Places API autocomplete. You just search for a place and it'll actually take you right there. So with that, let's take a look at some of these styles. So the first style that I put together, I don't know what I'm calling any of these styles necessarily, but let me get rid of the style bar. So this is what I call well, I'm just calling it pale, or the no color style. So basically what I've done is I built this style particularly for urban visualization. So if you want to do something like show a heat map for density, let's say traffic density or population density, I think this is actually a really nice map to use because your data actually really sits out on kind of the desaturated map background. And also the important thing to know about this is it's specifically for urban visualizations because all the other information, such as the roads and the neighborhoods and place names, they're all still on the map. So so this actually has all the same information as this map, except it's desaturated and some of the colors are kind of tweaked a little bit. So so all the information is there. It's just desaturated, so you can do things like rendered heat map. So what I did here is one thing I did in this tool is I just put a little heat map thing. So as I can click on well, let's draw something. Actually, I'm kind of way off now, but so we can actually see what a heat map looks on this visualization. I've actually the heat map's not a default heat map. I've actually done things like blown out the radius a little bit, so you can actually see it. Otherwise, the points are a little bit small on the map. And that's also if I hit this a couple times. I have a few different heat map styles that I kind of like. And actually this one, I call this the kind of rainbow pastel heat map. I've just basically taken all the primary colors and kind of bumped up the other color so it kind of fits a nice pastel and rank that from blue up to red. This is another one. So this is the one I actually used for the, this is the heat map gradient that I used for the ship's visualization. This is just kind of a fiery or hot. And this is actually one I kind of like. It's kind of muted, but I haven't gotten confirmation that anybody else likes it. But it's just a red to beige gradient, and it's a little bit muted, so a little less intense as the other ones. So you can see, so with this map here, so if we go back to even the default heat map, and we toggle between style, you can see that, I mean, obviously, since there's a lot of color in the heat map, you can see that it really sticks out on kind of the desaturated background. Another thing that's really interesting about this one, we'll move off-centered a little bit, is that map markers, default map markers, actually stick out quite a bit as well. So you can see the red marker, you know, with the kind of gray shadow fits really well with the desaturated background. You know, with the other red information in the map, a little less, sticks out a little less with the standard map style. The code for the, let's go back to the style. This one's actually relatively straightforward to build. What I did is actually I just take the saturation for the entire map down 100%. So that's just getting rid of all the color. I actually made the water a little darker. When you desaturate desaturate everything, things start to blend in a little bit. So then you actually have to start tweaking lightness to actually build up contrast between the different pieces of information in your map. So the water lightness I dropped down about 30 points. The water labels I actually brought those up a little bit. None on this map, but yeah, you can trust me. They're make it a little more visible. The roads and the parks, the points of interest. So the roads actually brought up the lightness to make them a little less visible because the roads are actually on kind of a white background, or the map when you desaturate it has kind of a whitish gray background. So bringing up the lightness is going to make them a little less apparent. Same thing with the parks. I actually brought the brightness up quite a bit, so you can see maybe around some of these parks in the town. The one thing, you know, I'd probably, if I were going to actually, you know, use this in production code though, or this map in production, I'd probably want to actually tweak the road and the park lightness a little bit, because if we do zoom out, especially where there's a lot of roads, you can kind of see it gets a little bit blurry, not super useful. As you zoom in though, I think it does a really nice job. Really nice job of kind of showing the various roads. And that's actually another trick you can actually do with these visualizations, with these maps, is that if you pick a particular style and you like it at a certain level, and the other levels they don't look as good, what you can do is you can actually constrain the minimax view of the map. So you can say that you don't want the map to zoom out, you know, into one of the zoom levels that doesn't look really good. And like I said, I mean, this was really designed for kind of an urban, this style was designed for kind of an urban visualizations or urban maps. So I might just want to constrain it to you know, kind of a lower zoom level and not let users zoom all the way out to the kind of the regional level. And the last thing that I put in here, actually I turned the terrain off. And so you've been following, we added terrain to the default maps not too long ago. And let's see if we can get a good picture of that. I mean, heat map's a little bit distracting. I'm going to turn that guy off and the marker. And so terrain, if we go back to the default style, not too much around Paris. But if let's just go back to San Francisco, because, oops, I know there's a lot of terrain around San Francisco. So, yep, the terrain up here in the Golden Gate Recreation Area, the Muir Woods area. So with this first style that I had, actually, we turned that off. On to the next style, so let's bring our pull up here and go to this one. So this one actually, the purpose for this one was to show roads and transit a little more prominent. So that's why I actually put in, so you can see here what I did is I, just kind of looking at the map, you can see I've kind of desaturated or actually brought the lightness up on the kind of the background or the kind of the base of the map, and actually brought the roads a little bit forward, and also obviously got rid of all the labels. So you can see with this is the default style, and we switch over to this new style. Roads actually really stick out quite a bit more. And the reason I did this is actually I wanted to look at transit information. So here I have the transit layer on top of the map. This one actually looks really good in Paris as well. So go back to Paris. Also, Japan looks great because they have really nice transit. But you can see the transit lines stick out really nicely. So if you're building a visualization around roads or transit, simple thing to do. If we go to this, this is a pretty short style. So I've simplified everything in the map. I mean, that does things like simplify, generally gets rid of the strokes around a lot of the features on the map. I turned all the labels off, so that's getting rid of all the text on the map. The landscape geometry, I brought up the lightness, and that's actually making it a little less apparent or faded looking. I guess I could also use saturation as another way I could approach that. The terrain, I turned the terrain off, like I did with the other map. Road geometry, so that's actually the roads themselves. I actually turned those, made sure those were on and not in a simplified mode, and then brought their lightness up. A couple other things, local roads, so you can see if I zoom in here and switch back to here, you can see the local roads that are in white on the default map, those are all gone, because for this visualization, if we're just looking at transit, or kind of intercity transit or kind of pan-city transit, the local roads don't really matter as much. And park geometry, again, I brought the lightness up to kind of make it a little less apparent, because I think by default the parks are a little bit dark for doing visualizations. So on to number 3. So these last 3. I just kind of had fun with styling with these. Actually, let's turn transit off, and let's get the code. Shrink this guy. So this one, when you're looking at it, just looks like a lot of text and rivers or text and lines. So basically, the land geometry is black and the rivers are white. So I've actually inversed kind of the contrast here. And the text I actually left in just for kind of demonstration. But in general, when this map, I like to view it without text. The interesting thing about this, because I picked this kind of inverse contrast between the water and the land, is this one's actually really good for looking at things like lakes or inland bodies of water. So when you look at this map here, so this is in the Ukraine, you can actually see a lot of these inland lakes, whereas if we hit the style button and go back to default style, you don't necessarily see them very much, and that's primarily because there's not as much contrast between the default color for the geometry or the land geometry and the water, as you get with the style on. You can see, if we zoom out, you can actually see some really interesting things with this. I've discovered things like, well, obviously, like Canada has actually quite a few lakes. You can see these interesting kind of circular feature here, circular lake in I believe that's Quebec. So you really get a sense of kind of the presence of inland water using this really kind of stark contrast, an inverted stark contrast. So this map is really about kind of understanding kind of the kind of local water bodies. I put in the labels just to kind of give the user a sense of kind of where they're at in the map. Another thing that I kind of browsing around this map is you can really see these are, I think a lot of these are irrigation channels, so or aqueducts. So kind of interesting to kind of see these in the map as well. Again, if we go back to the standard styling, you really don't get quite a sense of kind of how many or how much of the kind of inland water there is. And not a great map. I think this black background for kind of heat maps. Well, we'll try that out in a little bit. But in some cases, like where we're talking about land masses, it doesn't make a lot of sense for heat maps. This is actually the heat map I used for the ship voyage. So my point here. Oh well, we can go back real quick. Go back to the code for take a quick look at the code for this one. Pretty simple. So kind of what I talked about in previous shows is like for doing visualizations, it usually helps to do like turn everything off and then selectively add stuff back in, which I did with this map and actually the next few ones. So actually this first directive here is turning everything off in the map, so we don't have any features. And if you do that, you actually get your map is transparent, which is a really interesting trick that I'll take advantage of in a little bit. So water, making it kind of this grayish color, landscape, making it black. The roads, actually I turned the roads back on and made them black so that you can actually see the Oops, I have some heat map points in here. Oh, heat map is on, that's why. So you can actually see the bridge here. So if this is the Golden Gate Bridge, if I did not turn the roads back on, you just see the land masses and the water without the roads overlaid or the bridges overlaid, which is actually kind of a decent effect. But it kind of gave, looking at this map, gave me a little more sense of location. And just basically tweaking the properties for the labels on the water and on the land. I think at one point I had just used the inverse lightness. You can use that to actually, if it's a white fill with a black stroke for the text, it actually invert that. I didn't use it in here just because I guess I didn't really like the colors that were the inverse lightness. It was a little easier, a little nicer presentation to actually just set the colors myself. So moving on, so this was the ship visualization. So my goal with this was I wanted to plot a lot of data, actually a whole lot of data in the water. And the land masses are actually just about, showing that, well, this ship went from point A to point B, from this city to this city. But really the really important information was actually in the water, and that was the voyages of the ships. So here I actually picked black for the background, or for the water, which let me use some really kind of sharp colors or kind of bright colors for or pastel colors for the voyage. And unfortunately, with this tool that I put together, I didn't make any way to add polylines, but we can, turn the heat map back on. Let's get to the kind of this more pastel one. But you can see as we add these points to the black background here, it actually pops out really nicely. Primarily because there's not a lot of, there's not text here that's overlaying. If we go back over here, over to the land, the heat map points that I plotted earlier, a little bit more washed out on the grayer, the slightly more gray background. You could definitely tweak this a little bit, and I've definitely seen some really nice visualizations that did like white water with some kind of pastel, or even maybe some pastel polylines, which looks really nice. But if you want to really kind of turn up the amount of contrast, this is a good way to go about it. I think we covered the code for this a little while ago. I think it's a lot like the other map, where I, like I said before, I turn off the visibility on everything, and then selectively turn on things like the water, the text, et cetera, et cetera. This one actually I purposely turned on the labels for the country and localities. This is because I wanted to show show what cities the ships were coming from and going to. So I had a polyline going, for example, from London across to New York, for example, and you can actually see where the ships were, what cities the ships were coming from and going to. If I didn't turn these labels back on, because previously in the style I actually turned visibility off for everything, you wouldn't be able to see these labels. And so yeah, that's about it for that one. Actually, really tweaking the. Let me see what I'm doing here. So, this is actually just setting up the countries, or the land masses, which fills in nicely. So the very last one, so this is not necessarily a visualization that I'd want to use, and actually you can see at this level it doesn't really do much. Just want to turn the heat map off. So this style, something I put together recently, I think this is a lot of fun for, actually let me find some place that has roads. Paris is always a good one. So for actually just kind of looking at kind of the density of roads in a particular area, a particular city. What I did is I basically turned everything off in the map, made it black, and then took the roads and just made them white. Nice stark color. I played around with inverse. I mean, it looked actually really nicely to do a white background with black lines, or even like a dark blue or red lines. But the kind of you get the most contrast, obviously, with the black to white. The really nice thing about this, hopefully it comes through on YouTube, is that we can actually see the primary, or the freeways or the highways, and also the secondary roads kind of being mapped in here in a kind of a different contrast level. That's just how they're mapped by default, or how they're plotted by default. I don't know if we have kind of that level of detail for all countries. Like, for example, I was in Tokyo. Gotta go to Edogawa, Tokyo, Japan. You can see here at this level we don't see the secondary roads. They actually fill in the same color. Oops, zoom in here. The secondary roads actually fill in at the same kind of contrast level as the other roads. You can tweak that using the style, but what we saw with Paris, on the other hand, looks really nice. So I'm actually thinking about doing like a weekly, posting one of these up on one of these maps up on the developer or Google Plus developer Google Maps developers Google Plus channel, so you can kind of figure out where this is. And that's actually, I put a nice little flag in here. I can actually convert these styled maps into static maps. So this is actually pretty much just a snapshot of where the map is positioned right now as a JPEG file, or I think it's a PNG file. But yeah, so like I said, that's pretty much it for this tool. Pretty much it for the styles. I have a few more styles that I've been working on, but for other visualizations, but kind of spare you guys those for the time being until I can actually tweak them a little bit more. The other thing I was going to do real quick is I was really inspired. We were down in Sydney last week, and we went to an observatory that was kind of dedicated to celestial navigation in Sydney. And they had some really nice kind of historical maps, kind of ship log or ship maps, and very similar to what we were trying to show with the Google Maps API with the ship visualization. Although these maps obviously were quite a bit simpler. They just had kind of outlines for the countries, the labels for the countries, and then the voyage was actually marked in a different color, like a nice red color, obviously on kind of aged paper. Because these were actually real historic maps. So I wanted to actually see if I could reproduce that in the Google Maps API. And it surprisingly wasn't too hard, with a few caveats. I can't actually share the code for this one right yet because I want to actually kind of tweak it a little bit more and make it a little more usable. But the idea behind this is, and this is actually using styled maps, plus a few other Google Maps techniques. The first thing I did is actually I turned visibility off for everything on this map. And like I mentioned before, that actually makes the map background transparent. So doing that, you get a transparent background, and then I can just use a tileable image for the background of the map canvas. Then what I did is actually I just turned on the labels for the countries. And actually I did the countries and... Let's zoom in a little bit. Countries and localities, so we have cities as well. And you can see these pop in at a particular zoom level. Then I was kind of left with a little bit of a problem, because if we turn on the geometry for administrative, like the countries, it only shows the boundaries between countries. It doesn't show the boundaries around the edge of the country. So the next trick I did was actually find a KML file that actually had the full country boundaries, and you can see they're not super detailed. Just for performance reasons, you can see they're a little bit how we say coarse grained around the borders, but I think it does a pretty good job, especially when you're at at a higher zoom level. Next step with this map would be to actually plot a voyage in here to see what it looks like in kind of this archaic map or a historical map format. This one I hope to share out at some point. Just want to make sure I get all the attribution right for the polylines or for the KML, and also for this kind of parchment style background that I used. But yeah, stay tuned, and we'll hopefully get that out sometime this week. And with that, I think that's everything. Do I have any other bags?
We do have some questions, Paul.
Oh, we have some questions.
So
okay, we have the man
had
behind the curtain.
He wanted to know if there's any examples that you have using Clojure or Clojure script.
For using Google Maps API. That's a really... So, in my code, I am using closures, like JavaScript Clojure. Let me see if I can actually bring up some of the... Actually, probably not this code, but I'm not using Clojure, so I'm just using JavaScript Clojure, where, making sure that all my event handlers are attached to the appropriate object at creation time. We can definitely see if we can bring up some examples for that, though, because I think it's a common question that we get.
And you said you weren't releasing everything, but is there a chance that they could download your examples? Like, where can you point people?
Yes. So I haven't publicized it yet, but the ship visualizations that we put together last week, I just put them online actually very recently, and I'll follow up with that today or tomorrow. So ship visualizations will be out there. The paper map, like I said, I have to get it vetted before I can launch it, just to make sure that I get the attribution right for the other content that I pulled in. And this tool that I put together, this tool here, if there's interest in it, we can probably look at productizing it. This was something that, like I said, I put together in about a day just to kind of help me kind of tweak my styles. But it might make a nice tool, especially if developers could load their own styles. So either way, we can put this code someplace for you to download, or make it like a tool that you can use for doing your own map styling. So stay tuned on the code. Today or tomorrow, we can see the ship data, and then maybe early next week some of this data that we presented today. So, and producer Lewis says we're okay on the questions. So with that. Next week, we're maybe going to do another data visualization show, but not 100% sure yet. But we'll definitely get that posted as soon as we know. And if you guys have any other questions or any other ideas for shows, please share. We want to make sure that we're kind of getting information to you guys. I think this closure idea is actually, or closure is maybe a good idea. AngularJS is another big one that people like to see as well. So stay tuned. We'll definitely consider those. And any other ideas and any other comments or questions, please let us know. With that, have a great weekend, and see you guys next week.